Jack Bogle, Vanguard founder, died at 89. And to walk us through his likely legacy, Your Money's digital editor, Aleks Vickovich, joins me at the studio desk. Aleks, thanks so much for joining us.
Cheers, Leo.
Aleks, tell us why Jack Bogle was so important to the world of finance and what he changed.
Yeah, well, Leo, the investment industry doesn't often get emotional, at least not publicly. But today, since the news came out overnight of his passing at 89, there really has been quite an emotional response, an outpouring of grief, really, not just from the industry itself, but from regular consumers and from people who didn't really share his investment philosophy as well. Warren Buffett, who is the ultimate stock picker in some ways, said that Jack Bogle has done more for American investors than anyone else in history, and a range of support coming out for him. Partly that legacy is because of the company he founded. Vanguard was founded in 1974. It now has $5 trillion in assets under management. It's hard to overstate the impact that Vanguard has had, particularly since the GFC, on the market, especially in the United States. They're one of the main manufacturers, as you know, of ETFs and have really been pushing that passive investment boom.
All right, well, let's take it back. How did Jack Bogle manage this? What were his roots? Where did he begin, and what was the kind of light bulb moment that changed for Vanguard? Yeah,
and I think one of the reasons that people do have an emotional reaction around Jack is that he started the way a lot of fund managers start. He went to Princeton, he studied under top academics, he then got a job on Wall Street with the Wellington Fund, and was really, part of the wheel. He was a cog in the wheel of Wall Street at that time. But early 70s is when there was really this recalibration around, investment management, and people were starting to look under the hood a little bit more. Part of it was inspired by the Burton-Malkiel study at Princeton, famously, where they concluded that chimps throwing darts at the financial pages were as accurate a stock picking method as any of the experts. And so he was really kind of inspired by that philosophy. He launched the first index fund, really, and was an outspoken proponent of passive investment, and really, for people to challenge some of the assumptions of the funds management industry throughout his career.
Yeah, well, we use this vernacular of passive investing or exchange-traded funds. Let's just get it. How did that differ from what was being done in the past?
Yeah, well, I mean, at that time, in the decades following the Great Depression, America had gone through a real boom, and a lot of investors were in these mutual funds, or what we call managed funds, and paying pretty high fees. And Jack Bogle thought there was a better way of doing it. He thought that really tracking the index was better than trying to outperform it. But more importantly, I think, a lot of people listening or even sitting in the wings here will have their views around active or passive management. I think the bigger thing about Jack Bogle that consumers can take away, and the industry, is really a focus on transparency and on the idea that if people are going to charge for a fee, they need to be able to justify it.
Yeah, what was interesting is, as you allude to, he was kind of an outsider in his approach, maybe not in his background, Princeton educated, etc., but he set up his business in Pennsylvania in the suburbs rather than on Wall Street, and really took these guys on and took on that, I suppose, conservative logic around the markets that these guys know best.
That's right, and he was described as a cantankerous guy. This outpouring of support is not because he was necessarily an angel in his sort of personal dealings with people. But interestingly, he didn't just take on the preconceived notions of the industry. He also took on Vanguard at times, and Vanguard has put out some very gracious statements about him and his legacy today. But he was willing to be a thorn in their side at times when he had to be as well.
Well, Aleks, it's a great piece, and you can read it on yourmoney.com.au.